Key point 1. Is feminism really black and white? In modern feminism, the louder, more privileged notes have long drowned out a symphony of diverse voices. We've danced around important issues, focusing on trivialities while ignoring the harsh realities marginalized women face. But today, we must peel back the layers and reveal the stories that deserve our attention. Mainstream feminism can often be narrow-focused and sometimes even ignorant towards the diverse issues different women face. That's why we must challenge ourselves to confront our biases and acknowledge that equality for one group doesn't automatically extend to all. When something confuses us, we need to break down walls around it instead of building them. From gun violence that plagues lower-income communities to the gnawing hunger that persists despite our safety nets, these are the battles that marginalized women fight daily. In this summary, we'll delve into the stories of resilience that emerge from these struggles, reminding us that unity is our greatest strength. As we navigate the intersections of race, gender, poverty, and politics, we'll see how these threads weave together, twisting the lives of minorities. Within this complexity, the opportunity for change lies. However, awareness is not enough. We must actively advocate for change, dismantle stereotypes, and fight for justice. So, let's open our minds to the voices that have been silenced for far too long. Allow this summary to lead you through the knots of marginalized lives so you can contribute to a more equitable and inclusive future. The call to action is clear. Let's be the change we wish to see in the world and do it together. Key point 2. The issue we dare not face. In recent years, feminist discussions have frequently centered around issues like women's choice of last names and body hair, diverting attention from more pressing concerns that disproportionately impact marginalized women. This limited focus overshadows critical problems such as social invisibility, food insecurity, and gun violence, resulting in growing skepticism towards the broader women's movement and the perception of feminism as primarily serving the interests of middle and upper-class white women. Back in 2013, the Solidarity is for White Women hashtag shed light on how mainstream feminism often prioritizes the concerns of white women over others. This criticism sparked resistance from those who considered it divisive, but it also highlighted a long-standing problem: the belief that equality for one subgroup would trickle down to all women. This approach ignores the struggles faced by women of color, particularly when it comes to race-based discrimination. Gun violence, specifically pervasive for women in lower-income communities, is another issue that should be at the center of the feminist agenda. Statistically, firearms and domestic violence increase the risk of fatal outcomes. Gun violence also significantly affects children, with Black children disproportionately impacted. Furthermore, widespread mass shootings highlight that gun violence isn't confined to specific neighborhoods. That said, addressing gun violence requires a holistic approach, considering its impact on various communities, especially marginalized women and children. Inclusivity should be the cornerstone of feminism. Otherwise, it won't be feminism at all. Hunger is another pressing issue, with safety nets like food stamps, medical care, and public housing diminishing over time. Poverty affects many, and the misconception that determination alone can lift someone out of it is misguided. However, access to resources like education and childcare subsidies can make a significant difference. Hunger goes beyond a lack of food. It's about quality and accessibility. Food restrictions and programs like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, don't solve the problem because they overlook the need for proper kitchen equipment to store and cook food. Finally, the food stamps they offer are simply not enough. But at the end of the day, acts of kindness, such as helping someone buy groceries, can foster compassion and understanding. As part of a community, we must recognize the profound impact of hunger on individuals and work collectively to address the issue. Key point 3. How not to write about Black women. Female sexuality has a long history of repression behind derogatory names. But for Black women, this experience had its own tone. For example, in certain communities, the term fast-tailed girl serves as both a warning and a derogatory label for young women perceived as sexually precocious and lacking ambition. This label has deep roots in the history of sexual violence against Black women in America. The problem with this dubbing is that it doesn't solely depend on one's actions, but on societal perception. Even normal, age-appropriate behaviors can lead to being labeled as fast. Personal experiences highlight the challenges of growing up with this label, as it can strain relationships with family members who enforce their ideas of respectability. It's crucial to recognize that society often views Black women through a lens of racialized misogyny, perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Only after facing this uncomfortable truth can we move toward change. The hashtag #FastTailedGirls on Twitter provided a platform for women to share their experiences, emphasizing the need for society to address deeply rooted racist and sexist tropes. It showed that true progress can only happen when everyone works together to combat these narratives, ensuring that all women, especially those from marginalized communities, benefit. Moreover, growing up with traditional male figures, like grandfathers and stepfathers, can provide insights into patriarchal views deeply ingrained in derogatory labeling. While well-intentioned, these men may hold sexist beliefs rooted in their era's strict gender roles. For example, deviations from traditional femininity, like tomboyish tendencies in young girls, are often met with skepticism and family disagreements. The challenge lies in recognizing and addressing these biases, usually resulting from societal conditioning rather than inherent malice. Writing can magnify change, so focus on highlighting the silenced stories. When writing about Black women and their experiences, it's vital to approach the topic sensitively and avoid perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Writers often express concern for Black women's dilemma without providing context, relying on outdated or biased research. Stereotypes like the Mammy, Jezebel, or Sapphire tropes frequently appear, dehumanizing Black women and reducing them to one-dimensional portrayals. To truly understand and write about Black women, listening to their voices, acknowledging their experiences, and avoiding generalizations is essential. Writers should recognize their individuality, challenges, successes, and aspirations. By doing so, they can contribute to a more inclusive and accurate narrative that respects and uplifts Black women. Key point 4. This woman wants to be angry in full. In pursuing self-acceptance, Black women confront a complex web of beauty standards and harmful stereotypes. One common phrase, "pretty for a Black girl," highlights the skewed Eurocentric ideals shaping beauty perceptions. From childhood to adulthood, navigating these aesthetics within the Black community can be challenging. To start with, the complexities of beauty standards are apparent even within families themselves. Some may have freckles, while others are tall and muscular. Yet, within this diversity, an internal ranking system based on skin tone and hair texture persists. This hierarchy not only reflects physical appearance, but also embodies societal biases within family units. For example, the damaging notion that someone can be pretty for a Black girl perpetuates the false narrative that Black women are inherently less attractive, rooted in a history of racialized beauty standards favoring lighter skin and Eurocentric features. But the thing is, beauty is diverse. Everyone, regardless of their ethnicity, possesses a unique charm that we should celebrate. Embracing one's identity and weakening stereotypes is a step toward a more inclusive society. Aside from looks, another harmful stereotype spawning within society is that Black girls don't have eating disorders. Growing up, many master healthy eating tricks that conceal the reality of maladaptive behavior. Girls and women may fill their plates with zero-calorie foods to appear to be eating more than they are. This struggle often goes unnoticed, as smaller portions are also stereotyped to be appropriate for women. Unfortunately, society tends to accept eating disorders when they align with popular beauty standards, disguising them as clean eating or trendy diets. Additionally, the stereotype of Black women as naturally strong can lead to the dismissal of their mental health concerns. The myth that they can handle anything without breaking down further isolates those struggling with disorders like anorexia or bulimia. Speaking of Black women seen as unwaveringly strong, the label fierce, often used to describe assertive women, comes with its own challenges and stereotypes, particularly for women of color. Figures like Beyoncé and Serena Williams, celebrated for their fierceness, face scrutiny when their emotions or choices deviate from expectations. At this point, society rations women's anger, just like it does with food. Fierceness is a label society coined in fear of female resilience. Key point 5. When mad becomes a race feature. Black women remain victims of stereotypes and fables in the often misunderstood intersection of anger and vigilance. What's rarely discussed are the circumstances that make them fearful and deeply protective of their lives and those of their loved ones. Indeed, context matters as often their actions are driven by self-preservation, not aggression. A related issue is the alarming rate of individuals going missing, especially from marginalized groups. Personal experiences of vulnerability, from childhood mishaps to potentially dangerous encounters, highlight the daily risks. Yet, this issue goes beyond individual stories. In places like Chicago, Black and brown women often vanish without a trace, with law enforcement's response being painfully inadequate. Media also plays a problematic role in this crisis. Missing white woman syndrome perpetuates the bias in coverage, sidelining missing persons from marginalized communities. This unequal attention hinders investigations and perpetuates the problem. While the underlying causes vary, from domestic violence to human trafficking, systemic neglect remains a common thread. Mainstream, white-centered feminism hasn't just failed women of color, it has failed white women. Mikki Kendall. The connection between fear and feminism, especially regarding race, is equally complex. The Anita Hill case, in which a Black woman accused a Black man, highlights the often overlooked nuances. In other words, the assumption that women tend to support men of their skin color, even in gender-related issues, oversimplifies their roles. Unfortunately, feminism is often viewed through a race-blind lens, disregarding the unique challenges women of color face. To resist generalization is to enable progress. Furthermore, the perception of male privilege and patriarchal attitudes is not exclusive to any race. However, the intersection of race and gender adds a layer of complexity. The danger lies in assuming that a snippet of history or a singular narrative represents the whole story. It's essential to recognize the diverse experiences and perspectives of women from all backgrounds and understand the multifaceted nature of feminism and its relationship with fear. Did you know? Unlike white households, Black men and women are more likely to discuss gender inequality privately than share their opinions online. Key point 6. The vicious cycle of survival. In the American society, the relationship between race, poverty, and politics has been deeply interwoven for decades, impacting marginalized communities. Take, for instance, the promise of change brought by Bill Clinton's 1992 election. It was a beacon of hope for policies that would uplift all Americans. However, Clinton's welfare-to-work bill seemed more intent on punishing poverty than addressing it, further exacerbating the struggles of those in need. Political discourse often focuses on the working class, but frequently neglects the economic anxieties of inner-city communities of color. This selective attention perpetuates harmful stereotypes and ignores the systemic challenges faced by these communities. Voter suppression and disenfranchisement are additional concerns. Low voter turnout in neglected neighborhoods isn't just about laziness. It's a result of years of systemic neglect, fostering a belief that their votes don't matter. Education, a powerful tool, shapes the futures of individuals and entire communities, and could be an instrument of change in this situation. However, the American educational system doesn't reflect the hopeful narrative for many from marginalized backgrounds. It starkly contrasts public perception and reality in the hood. Educational systems need to consider the varied experiences and backgrounds of all students. There's a reason why many children from marginalized communities slip away from the righteous path. They aren't inherently malicious. However, their circumstances, like inadequate foster care or financial strain within their families, often push them away. That said, the educational system in marginalized neighborhoods faces challenges, from underfunding to a lack of resources, hindering students' progress. Stereotypes that these students are destined for crime or lack ambition oversimplify their potential. Additionally, the housing crisis, intertwined with poverty, pushes marginalized women further away from safety. The advice to budget 30% of income for housing clashes with the reality of minimum wage salaries, leading to inadequate options. Public housing and Section 8 programs often fall short, forcing families into overcrowded, uncomfortable, and unsafe living conditions. The crisis hits women especially hard, as they earn less on average, and this wage gap is even worse when considering the racial factor. While white women earn less than men, Black, Latina, and Indigenous women earn even less than white women. Key point 7. Healthcare or health dare. Healthcare has advanced significantly in the last few decades. Now, more people live to see their 60s and 70s. But despite advancements in medical science, the critical issue of maternal mortality remains daunting for the female population. Shockingly, as of 2020, Black women in the U.S. faced a staggering 243% higher likelihood of dying from pregnancy-related causes, a disparity tracing back to the history of eugenics, disproportionately targeting marginalized groups. Eugenics' dark legacy includes the forced sterilization of Indigenous Americans in the 1970s and similar practices in Puerto Rico. Even more alarming are allegations that California prisons authorized coerced sterilizations of female inmates between 2006 and 2010. Such actions are rooted in the belief that certain communities should not reproduce, leading to enduring repercussions for reproductive rights and healthcare. In light of the feminist upsurge, reproductive justice extends beyond abortion rights. It encompasses broader aspects like access to contraception and healthcare. However, it often falls short of addressing the needs of trans, non-binary, and intersex individuals, sidelining their struggles. Bodily autonomy is the heart of reproductive healthcare, yet trans individuals frequently face denials of this right due to prevailing transphobia. No one has a right to discredit parents who genuinely try in their children's eyes. The narrative also dives into the unique challenges faced by families raising children with disabilities. The exorbitant costs and societal prejudices push these families toward heart-wrenching decisions. Poverty, for instance, may compel parents to leave their children in less than ideal care, a move often misinterpreted by the system. Parenting in marginalized communities presents elevated stakes, with safety concerns ranging from gangs to deportation. Choices that may appear neglectful to outsiders are often desperate survival tactics. The prevailing white savior narrative compounds these challenges, erroneously suggesting that children of color are better off with wealthier parents. Calls for solidarity or sisterhood have to begin with the idea that all women matter, that all families matter. Mikki Kendall. Education becomes a battleground for these parents, focusing on issues like school closures, teacher salaries, and the presence of police officers in schools. The term helicopter parenting doesn't apply here. It's more about survival parenting. In the end, marginalized families must choose between trying to provide a worthy life for their children and simply managing their lives. Conclusion. Women handle many invisible challenges daily, but most are unaware of those cast upon marginalized women. The global feminist movement must shift its narrow focus to try and encompass the issues plaguing the lives of women from different social and ethnic backgrounds. Their struggles matter, and it's up to all of us to amplify their voices and finally listen to their stories. It's essential to remember that parenting in marginalized communities remains a relentless battle for survival, where safety concerns and biases against families often persist. The resilience of these parents must be acknowledged, and we must actively work to dismantle the harmful white savior narrative. Education is another battleground where stereotypes and systemic issues limit the opportunities of marginalized students. Not to mention the housing crisis disproportionately affecting women who earn less on average. Stable homes remain out of reach for many, and we must advocate for affordable housing solutions. Lastly, anger and fear in marginalized communities remains an issue we must address more efficiently as a society. Many still don't realize that these emotions are not signs of aggression, but self-preservation, which we all turn to in the face of adversity. We must dismantle biases, put in the effort, and contribute to a better life for those around us. Let's accept and celebrate the beauty of diversity. Try this. Educate yourself. Learn about the issues faced by marginalized communities. Listen and amplify. Give a platform to marginalized voices whenever possible. Advocate for change. Support local policies and initiatives that address systemic issues and promote equality. Show unbiased compassion. Simple acts of kindness can foster empathy and understanding. Challenge stereotypes. Be conscious of the biases that persist in society and actively challenge them.